Today, a priority review in neuroendocrine tumors, breakthrough therapy designations in graft-versus-host disease and bladder cancer, European regulatory updates on ofatumumab and pembrolizumab, and updates to the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force screening guideline for colorectal cancer. Welcome to Enclave News Network. I'm Gina Columbus. The FDA has granted a priority review to the peptide receptor radionuclide therapy Lutathera as a potential treatment for patients with gastroenteropancreatic neuroendocrine tumors. The decision was based on findings from the Phase 3 NETTER-1 trial, in which Lutathera was compared with high-dose octreotide, LAR, for patients with grade 1 or 2 metastatic midgut NETs. In the study, Lutathera was associated with a 79% reduction in the risk of progression or death versus octreotide. The ORR with Lutathera was 18% versus 3% with octreotide, and there was 1 complete response with Lutathera and 17 partial responses. The stable disease rate with Lutathera was 66% versus 62% with octreotide. The median progression-free survival had not been reached in the Lutathera arm, compared with 8.4 months in the high-dose octreotide arm. The estimated median PFS was approximately 40 months with Lutathera. The FDA is scheduled to make a decision on Lutathera by December 28, 2016, as part of the Prescription Drug User Fee Act. The JAK1/JAK2 inhibitor ruxolitinib was recently granted a breakthrough therapy designation by the FDA for patients with acute graft-versus-host disease. The decision was based on 2 small clinical trials which demonstrated high response rates with the agent. In one study, in which all patients received ruxolitinib as salvage therapy, the overall response rate was 81.5% in those with corticosteroid refractory acute disease and 85.4% in patients with SR chronic disease. The 6-month overall survival rate was 79% in the SR acute GVHD group and 97.4% in the SR chronic GVHD group. A second study examined patients with hematologic malignancies who received transplants and developed chronic GVHD. Patient responses to ruxolitinib were observed at a median of 14 days following the start of treatment. The researchers observed complete resolution of clinical manifestations of chronic GVHD in patients' lungs, mouth, skin, liver, musculoskeletal system, and GI tract. The FDA's breakthrough designation is meant to expedite the development of therapies that offer substantial benefits over existing options. Under the program, a rolling submission of data is allowed along with more communication with the FDA. Nivolumab has been granted a breakthrough therapy designation by the FDA for the treatment of patients with unresectable, locally advanced, or metastatic urothelial carcinoma after failure of a platinum-containing regimen. The designation was based on findings from the Phase 2 CA209275 trial, as well as additional supportive data. The data will be submitted for presentation at an upcoming medical meeting, according to Bristol Myers Squibb, the manufacturer of nivolumab. Data for nivolumab in this setting from the CheckMate 032 trial were recently reported at the 2016 ASCO annual meeting. In the trial, nivolumab monotherapy had an overall response rate of nearly 25% in patients with advanced MUC. The median progression-free survival was 2.78 months, and the median overall survival was 9.72 months. Among patients with PD-L1 levels of more than 1%, the ORR was 24%. However, patients with PD-L1 expression of less than 1% had an overall response rate of 26.2%, suggesting that PD-L1 status was irrelevant for response rate. In a statement, Dr. Jean Vallée, Global Clinical Research Lead, Oncology, BMS, said, "Urothelial cancer is a common type of bladder cancer where patients experience high rates of recurrence and remains an area where new treatment approaches are needed, further underscoring the importance of this designation for Opdivo. As part of our commitment to bring Opdivo to these advanced bladder cancer patients as quickly as possible, we look forward to filing a marketing application with health authorities based on results from Study 275 and other supporting data in the coming months, as well as submitting the data for presentation at an upcoming medical meeting." In chronic lymphocytic leukemia, the EMA's Committee for Medicinal Products for Human Use issued a negative opinion to ofatumumab regarding its potential use in the maintenance setting for patients with relapse disease. The CHMP based its decision on results from the Phase 3 PROLONG trial, in which maintenance ofatumumab demonstrated a median progression-free survival of 29.4 months versus 15.2 months with observation, representing a 50% reduction in the risk of progression. Additionally, the time to next therapy was 6.9 months longer with ofatumumab compared with observation. The European Commission will review the negative CHMP opinion before a final regulatory decision, but the EC typically follows the committee's recommendations. Ofatumumab, combined with chlorambucil or bendamustine, is approved in the EU for use in previously untreated patients with CLL who are not candidates for fludarabine-based therapy. In the United States, ofatumumab is approved for use in combination with chlorambucil in treatment-naive patients with CLL who are ineligible for fludarabine-based therapy and for the extended treatment of patients with recurrent or progressive CLL who are in complete or partial response following at least 2 lines of therapy. The United States Preventative Services Task Force has updated its screening guideline for colorectal cancer. In the final version, the USPSTF recommends screening for CRC using traditional colonoscopy or one of 7 tests at various frequencies for all patients aged 50 to 75. The recommendation to screen all patients, which was given an A grade, was based upon the analysis of the risks and benefits associated with the various procedures. CRC screening was also linked with a decrease in mortality. For patients between the ages of 76 and 85, screening was considered voluntary and the patient's overall health should be taken into account. The updated recommendation reviewed the safety and efficacy of colonoscopy, flexible sigmoidoscopy, computed tomography, colonography, the guaiac-based fecal occult blood test, the fecal immunochemical test, the multi-targeted stool DNA test, and the methylated Sept9 DNA test as possible methods for the detection of colorectal cancer. In a statement, Dr. Albert Su of Mount Sinai and the USPSTF Immediate Past Chair said, "The task force strongly recommends screening adults ages 50 to 75 for colorectal cancer, as it reduces the risk of dying from the disease. Evidence convincingly shows screening for colorectal cancer works, but not enough people are taking advantage of this highly effective service." By recommending more testing methods such as virtual colonoscopy, which is less invasive and does not require sedation, the USPSTF hopes that more people would get this potentially life-saving screening. The CHMP has issued a positive opinion for use of pembrolizumab as a treatment for patients with locally advanced or metastatic PD-L1 positive non-small cell lung cancer following at least 1 chemotherapy regimen. The opinion is based on data from the KEYNOTE-010 and 001 studies. In KEYNOTE-010, where patients were randomized to receive pembrolizumab or docetaxel, the median overall survival was 10.4 months with a 2 mg per kilogram dose of pembrolizumab, compared with 8.5 months with docetaxel in those with more than 1% PD-L1 expressing non-small cell lung cancer. With the larger 10 mg per kilogram dose of pembrolizumab, the median OS was 12.7 months. After a median follow-up of 13.1 months, the estimated 1-year OS rates were 43.2% and 52.3% for the 2 mg per kilogram and 10 mg per kilogram doses, respectively. The 1-year OS rate with docetaxel was 34.6%. In those with greater than or equal to 50% PD-L1 expression, the median OS with the 2 mg per kilogram dose of pembrolizumab was 14.9 months versus 8.2 months with docetaxel. In the 10 mg per kilogram arm, the median OS was 17.3 months. In the KEYNOTE-001 trial, the overall response rate with pembrolizumab was 41% among a subgroup of 61 patients with pre-treated PD-L1 positive advanced non-small cell lung cancer as determined by the 22C3 PharmDx diagnostic test. 84% of responses in this group were ongoing, including 11 patients with ongoing responses of more than 6 months. The positive opinion suggests pembrolizumab is likely to be approved for this indication in the EU when the European Commission issues its final decision, which is expected by the 3rd quarter of 2016. That's all for today. Thank you for watching Enclave News Network. I'm Gina Columbus.